Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Platitude Era podcast. In this episode of the podcast, we will be reviewing the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, movie starring Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, and the talented director Quentin Tarantino. This is the ninth film by Quentin Tarantino. Synopsis for the movie is a failing Hollywood actor makes one more attempt at being famous or staying relevant. What did you think of the marketing?
You can't go wrong with a Quentin Tarantino movie. Or like, you see the trailer and you're like, well, I guess I know what I'm doing to stay.
And the thing about Quentin Tarantino movies, it's that the way he makes its movies, you can take any part of that movie and make a really good trailer. So this was marketed as a ninth Quentin Tarantino film. The trailer had a really good soundtrack. It had those really interesting lines of dialogue that just drew you in. And I don't know what we can say about the marketing because this was not the number one movie this week. It was The Lion King for the second time. And this was the second place. It made about $40 million. And sure, it wasn't number one, but it still got some accolades. Is that the right word? Because it was Quentin Tarantino's movie with the biggest opening so far.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's just, the summer blockbuster's been painting for a while this season. So yeah, I guess audiences were craving something.
And moving on to the story now. So the way we talk about movies is we love movies. Not only do we review movies, but we discuss them and we analyze them. So we start off with the marketing, which is how much it makes you want to see the movie. And then from there, we go on to the story. And I don't know, for me, the story didn't go anywhere. It was just like watching the camera, or you were like a fly in the wall following this actor in the what, in the 1960s or 70s.
1969. So it's right on the cusp of the 70s. I guess what you can describe this movie is kind of a slice of life movie because, you could argue that most people's lives are uneventful, and the bulk of this movie feels like an uneventful day.
I think one YouTuber described it best. If you're aspiring to be in the entertainment industry, to be an actor or a director, maybe more of an actor or work in the entertainment industry, then you're going to enjoy the ride, being the fly on the wall and just following the day in the life of an actor. But anybody else, I don't think they're going to be drawn into the story.
Yeah, I can't help but like when I'm bored, I feel like when I'm watching a movie and I'm bored, I feel like I can tolerate the movie, but then I'm like taken out of the movie and then I kind of like put myself in this like the seat of the audience member who's not like probably not a regular moviegoer who just go every once in a while and like, hey, Quentin Tarantino, that's supposed to be good, right? And they're watching this and like, and I was gonna do another errand. Wasn't there supposed to be like action or swearing or something cool happening? What's going on here?
And that's interesting that you mentioned that acting and swearing, because before we did this podcast, we were watching Django, and we were talking about Quentin Tarantino's earlier body of work, that he was famous for using certain words. And it seems like the climate and the way people have changed now, that they're more politically correct. In this movie, he didn't use those words anymore, and it wasn't that. It was still the same style, but just the story was more politically correct.
I'm curious if like because like I think Tarantino's a huge fan like of 1960s film or cinema or Hollywood or this kind of era because when I'm watching this movie I feel like boy he's nailed down this era to a T. Like I wouldn't be surprised if like oh this is such an accurate movie, everything is so pitch accurate. People from the 60s in LA would be like wow this is amazing, that like I think he wanted to draw more attention to I guess this specific era or these emotions that this period in history brings to him instead of like I don't know, I guess like I don't know what race or other like you could argue I guess that it was the 60s or were a big moment for race, but I guess that wasn't necessarily the story he wanted to tell, so I guess maybe he leaned in heavily on that with Django. I don't know if he used his specific language in Hateful Eight. I haven't seen it in a while, but I don't know, maybe he's been veering away from it. Maybe it is the climate, maybe it's just not the story you wanted to tell.
Yeah, and kind of hard to get back to people on Hateful Eight. If you guys know, write us in the comments section, or if you're listening to this, download the Anchor app and send us a voicemail. But from what I recall, if you go on Netflix, the Hateful Eight is there. It's the extended cut, and it does feel like a chore. You get to see a lot of the characters' chores. When the characters veer off from the main story, they're doing chores or what, side
Mm.
quest. Anyways, we're digressing. Now we talked about the story, our thoughts on the story. Now we're moving on to the acting. Brad Pitt was cool. You see Brad Pitt in some films, and he's just really cool in them. World War Z, Inglourious Bastards, and this movie's no different. Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt have really good chemistry in this movie. It just what the story was missing, the chemistry between Leo and Brad, and then just Brad Pitt, whenever he was featured by himself, his coolness was just enough to carry the movie.
Yeah, I would say that the film definitely shines more when you either have, well, I guess mostly with Brad Pitt. I mean, like Leonardo DiCaprio has his own arc going on, I guess, and it's pretty interesting, but sometimes it feels kind of like a slog. Like, I get what they're doing here. Like for the most part, every time I saw Leo on screen, I'm like, oh, this is just Tarantino flexing his knowledge of '60s cinema, like because it always like cut away to like, oh, do you know you could like Steve McQueen was in this movie, and like, yeah, I auditioned for this movie, and then cutting to them in a Forrest Gump style like CG special effect where like they put Leo in the scene of the movie. I'm like, okay, that's neat, I guess, but I mean, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah, I only remember watching that movie in middle school, but for the feeling I got from the movie theater is a lot of the people are about our age or a little older than our age, a little younger than our age in the movie theater. Didn't see that movie, don't know that movie exists, and didn't get the reference. I feel that if we would have seen the movie with an older crowd that was aware of that movie and the significance of that movie, then they would have been laughing. They would have been like, "Oh my god, ha ha ha!"
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this felt like just, hey, this is like Quentin Tarantino Trivial Pursuit or something. And it's like, here's all these factoids I can list off about movies from the '60s or whatever. It's like, here's like a trailer from this Joe Namath movie. Here's this like kind of cool hand Lukey thing with Steve McQueen. I don't know. It's just like there was like a lot of cut. Like this almost felt like Family Guy or something, where there was cutaways to things that like didn't matter. Or like, hey, here's 1969 movie or 1960s movie, and it's just like, yeah, I'm watching you put this on screen, but I mean, when are we gonna get to the fireworks factory, you know?
That's putting it Family Guy cutscenes because there's this one scene that just came out of nowhere and like you can tell there was like a scene missing where Margot Robbie turns to another character and says, "Hey, remember the time we went to that 1969 style party?"
Yeah, there's a lot of like there's like okay, because I just want to, we can talk about that more, but I just like it just reminded me. Remember, like there's the one scene like, oh, Al Pacino, oh, I was in my home theater and I had to get a scotch on the rocks and a stogie and we watched old westerns and I'm like, I don't care and this doesn't matter to anything and it's just like there's a lot of moments like that in this movie of just cut away to nothing that matters.
And this is a great transition into the directing. I've heard interviews when Quentin Tarantino was uh, becoming more and more recognized with each movie. It was Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown. There was this interview where he said, "Oh, what I usually do is I imagine these scenes with these characters. I imagine these characters, and then I just write down what they say." And it seems like in this movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he put a little bit of himself into each character because there have been interviews from other actors who are like, "Oh, I get invited to Quentin Tarantino's house and we'll watch old movies. He's actually got the film print and we'll watch them in his screening room." And that's kind of like what happened with Al Pacino, how like you mentioned, he goes into a screening room, he prepares a stogie, pours himself a glass, sits down and watch a film print, and it's kind of like that sounds like what I've heard about Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, I guess he's just too big a fan of this era where he couldn't like separate himself from it. So like, oh, this is what I love about the '60s, but like you're not bringing like you're like a huge fan like some like weeb nerd like anime fan trying to tell me about like some anime, but like they haven't like gotten me to dip my toes into it. They're just going full force into like the super in-depth nerdy shit, and like I can't keep up with you, man. Usain Bolt, I'm not running in a race with you.
And another thing that's very interesting here is, yeah, it didn't have the same storytelling as other Quentin Tarantino films, but I noticed some layers. Like, for example, Leonardo DiCaprio in this movie plays a part of a character who's a failing actor, and just the way that he portrayed his character, like he's worried, he's panicking about his career, kind of seems like a parallel with millennials today. How it's like, oh my god, I have to grow up now, I have to find a job, and millennials are panicking about the future. Did you notice that, or does it make sense to you now?
I mean, I wouldn't have gotten that per se. I mean, it just seems like a changeover, like kind of the opposite of this guy had a career, but now it's slowly faltering away, or like, you felt like you were on top and you felt like you were destined for greatness or whatever, which I guess millennials kind of have some of that mindset of like, they were told they were, is that like the self-esteem movement? They're told they're special, but then they wind up, just being another face in the clowns.
And then also there was that scene about hippies. Another film critic talked about this, that they were like, "Oh, I hate hippies." I wonder if that's another parallel with millennials. Kind of like millennials are his fans, and he's like, "Hey guys, I'm making a movie for you, and I'm featuring you in it." In the 1969s, people hated hippies, and then now the previous generation, they don't like millennials because they think you guys whine too much. You guys think that you're entitled to everything.
Hmm. Yeah. History goes in cycles, I suppose. I don't know if it like maybe that's just history is written by the victor. Maybe like the like hippies have become an extreme. I don't know if I can necessarily put like millennials in a parallel landscape, but sure.
Yeah, I just put it in the sense that the way the movie painted, I don't know what hippies are. I don't know what the hippie movement is, but in this movie, there was that constant, oh, I hate hippies because hippies are like this. And
Hmm.
people are just making statements without knowing if it's true or not. And in today times, the previous generation is complaining about millennials and saying, oh, millennials are like this and millennials are like that, without actually knowing for sure. I mean, a couple of problems millennials have is, one, everyone tells us, hey man, you got to go to college so you can get a good job. And then we go to college, we graduate, and we find out we can't get good jobs because they want work experience. Well, I didn't get work experience because I was going to college. I was hoping my college would be my work experience.
Yeah, similar mindset.
And the directing, I mean, Quentin Tarantino has a good eye. He's got a good way of setting up a shot. The camera does some really neat movements that just, make you feel like a fly on the wall. But a complaint I did have was that there were way too many filler scenes that were just in there that didn't need to go anywhere. Like you mentioned, the Al Pacino scene where he's like, I poured myself a glass of brandy, and he pours himself a glass of brandy. Oh, and then I prepared my cigarette. You see him preparing a cigarette, and there were a lot of scenes like that. Do you know another one? I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a
Um,
blank while the spotlight's on me, but
well, I
there
mean,
were
I guess
way too many.
yeah, I mean that's showing how not terribly memorable this movie was. I just like remember getting off of the high of like the start of the movie, like wow, it's like I'm being transported into 1969 LA. This is amazing. And then in the middle, like a lot of nothing's happening, a lot of people going here or there. I mean, like for like Margot Robbie's a pretty big actress in her own right, and playing the role of Sharon Tate is, I mean, it's a pretty big role you'd imagine, and essentially that movie for her is like except for watching her make like a deposit at the bank, you pretty much see all of her daily errands.
Oh, that's right. Just doing all her chores like anybody else, any one of us.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess another filler scene, or there's two. One you told me about, and a second one I'm going to bring up right now. I'm going to bring up this one that Leonardo DiCaprio. He's working on a TV show, and
Hmm.
then actors take breaks in between shot setups. So there's this break between a shot setup, and you pretty much see Leonardo DiCaprio sit down on his chair, get himself into a comfortable groove on his chair, moving about, pulling out this book, spitting. He's doing all these little like things that aren't required.
Hmm.
And another filler scene that you brought up was Brad Pitt. climbing up on a roof to fix an antenna.
Yeah, there's like the specific action of him like going to fix the antenna doesn't matter, but there's like beats within that segment because that segment is essentially just like a segue to a flashback to an interesting scene, which I guess would be a spoiler, so I don't know if I want to save it or not. But it's like to a flashback, and it's like, hey, like I felt like the movie finally kicked off once that flashback happened. I'm like, hey, this movie's getting good, and then I think it went back to like being boring, Sharon Tate or something.
Yeah, it lost its momentum.
Yeah.
One more thing I have for directing is that there are a lot of Easter eggs. If you've seen every Quentin Tarantino movie, you're going to see references to his previous films in this. Some of them are going to be a bit of a stretch, but if you think about it or don't think about it, it makes a lot of sense. What's your recommendation for this movie?
Uh, I mean, in a nutshell, if you're a fan of Tarantino, probably have already seen it. If you haven't, I mean, you're gonna go see it if you're a Tarantino fan. But for the general movie-going audience, I wouldn't call this Django. I wouldn't call this Inglorious Bastards or Kill Bill. Like the more action-packed, more faster paced movies. This is like a slow burn, and if you're willing to appreciate the era and how close to accurate it is, I mean, it might be for you, but I don't think that's enough for the price of admission.
Yeah, I feel the same way too. This movie, I say skip it. If you're a Tarantino fan, wait for it to be a rental or wait for it to come out on TV or Netflix and watch it because I mean, there's not that much here. There are things. Quentin Tarantino does have a way to tell a story. He does have a way to shoot a movie that are that are you can pay for the ticket and you won't be disappointed. But it's like, hey man, I'm trying to tell you, save your money.
But then I'm kind of like on the fence because like it has such like the whole movie's kind of a drag, but then it kind of pays itself off in like such a great finale that like I mean, like seldom do movies make me go like ooh and ah and like get a reaction out of me. But the ending, like maybe because it was like teasing me the whole time, where I finally got a release, but like the ending kind of like floored me. I kind of loved the ending, but I don't know if it's worth sitting through a 2.5 hour movie just to get to it.
Yeah, which is why I suggest watching it on TV, renting it, or
But
waiting for
I
the
don't know if it's gonna
Netflix.
get censored on TV. It's one of those types.
Yeah, it is. What we're referring to, without going into spoilers, don't worry, no spoilers, is kind of in the vein of Pulp Fiction. This movie has multiple storylines. It has the storylines of different characters, and then at the end of the movie, all the stories combine at the end. And what's interesting is that I remember in the '90s, the early 2000s, watching movies where you had separate characters and trying to combine them at the end. Critics as well as myself noticed that it didn't make sense. It was like, okay, you have all these separate stories and you just didn't know how to put them together. But Quentin Tarantino has a gift and he makes it look so effortless where it's like, oh, and now all these separate characters come together at the end and it's like, wow, you did it in a very brilliant way and without any effort.
Yeah, I can go by that. I mean, that's the intent of screenwriting is supposed to be, you set things up and then you have them pay off at the end. Tarantino, does that pretty masterfully. But like, if the rest of the movie was more focused, or leading up to it, more cleanly, then it might be an even better payoff.
Yeah, I guess if the pacing, if he trimmed a lot of the filler scenes, took out some of the filler scenes, trimmed some of the other scenes, then it would be worth it to watch it in the movie theater for the ending. Now we're
Yeah.
getting into the spoiler section. If you haven't seen the movie, you know what to do. And if you've seen it, hey, welcome to the spoiler section. And if you haven't seen the movie and don't mind being spoiled, well, hey guys, I mean, here's something to pass the time while you wait for the movie to come out on rental or Netflix or whatever, and see for yourself what we're talking about in the spoiler section. But beware, spoilers ahead. So, how do we do this? I just labeled that spoiler section favorite parts. I don't know. Other people really get into a full on spoiler discussion, but I'm experimenting with favorite parts.
I mean, let me so the Bruce Lee scene obviously was a great scene. I guess that was the that really kickstarted the movie because like, hey, there's a little bit of action, there's some good dialogue going on here, and it was just brought a bit of levity to a mostly kind of meh experience in like what the first hour.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You know, rest in peace, Bruce Lee. He was taken from us way too early, and it's just fun how Quentin Tarantino included him in the scene. You have this great action scene. It's a fight scene between Bruce Lee and Brad Pitt, and then you just got this humor. Just Brad Pitt, just I recognize him for earlier in his career as being a dramatic actor, and I guess you recognize him from later in his career as just the way that he knows how to work the camera and work in humor.
Hmm. And it was like I said, back to if the movie was a little more focused. I mean, this segment was obviously like a pretty good lead in to like the finale with the Manson family because it's like, hey, Brad Pitt like can carry his own. He almost beat the crap out of Bruce Lee. I mean, like you're watching the end and you're like, oh shit, he's high on acid. How's he going to deal with the Manson family? And then when he handles himself pretty well, like, that was a sweet tease. Like, oh, he can kick Bruce Lee's ass. He like jumped on the roof to fix the TV antenna. Like he's like pretty capable dude. He got away with murder. Like, the audience shouldn't worry about how he's going to handle himself fighting three Manson family members.
Yeah. So I guess just a way to let you know, this movie exists, like Inglorious Bastard exists in an alternate timeline. There's a famous Manson family murders, and then Quentin Tarantino puts a spin on it, and then just Brad Pitt does this like cool fight scene, and he fights the Manson family, and that's something that you actually do have to see, whether it comes out on TV, which it's going to be heavily edited, but when it comes out on video, rent that and watch it for that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I like I said, back to like I think what helped make the scene feel so rewarding was just how little there was to grasp onto during the rest of the movie.
And what was that other thing? I know you wanted to talk about something. I don't know if it was in our recommendation or directing section that you said you wanted to save for the spoiler. Was that it, or was it something else?
Yeah, because I said the flashback, so that yeah, the Bruce like everything with Bruce Lee, which eventually led into the murder.
Yeah, when I thought you were talking about flashbacks, I thought you were talking about when Brad Pitt climbs on the roof,
Hmm.
and then he's trying to fix a roof, and then he just starts daydreaming, or you know how you look at something and then you
Well,
stare
like
off into
because he was
space.
yeah, so like it flashbacked into like the conversation he had with Leo, where he's like, "Hey, can you see if I can get on this job?" And then Leo's like, "Yeah, it's gonna be the guy who did the Green Hornet." And then it flashbacks into like the whole discussion between Leo and Kurt Russell, and then Brad Pitt is able to get onto the job, and then he beats the crap out of Bruce Lee, and then uh, and then he gets kicked off the set, and then like it flashes back to the present, and then like Brad Pitt's like, "Oh yeah, that's why I'm not gonna work with that guy."
That there was so much humor in that scene. So you have the
Mm-hmm.
flashback where he beats up Bruce Lee. You got the flashback where he got fired. You got the flashback where he says, "Oh yeah, that's why I'm not going to get hired." And then don't forget, you had this other flashback within the flashback, which is something that every middle-aged man has wanted to do, which is he's having a flashback of what happened to his wife.
Yeah, I get moments like that which make drew the Family Guy connections. Like, wow, there's like a ton of just cutaways, even cutaways within cutaways.
And this is something I should have said in the recommendation, and I forgot. But it's also stay during the credits. It's something
Oh
I
yeah,
want to add. It's whether a movie has something worth staying in the credits or not. And in this one, it you have to stay during the credits.
yeah. I mean, like for people fans of Marvel movies, you expect something to be during the credits. For a Tarantino movie, you don't expect anything before, during, or after the credits. So it was a nice bit of. You could almost like see this as a deleted scene, but it was nice that it was inserted into the mid credits.
Yeah, because it's I don't know if you guys want us to reveal it or not. Please write down in the comment sections if we
Well,
should
we're already in
reveal
the
the.
spoiler section. I don't know why you're being so cagey about it.
Oh no, it's just for future reference. Like, hey, is it okay if we spoil the post credit or not? So write it down in the comment section of our YouTube video, or send us a voicemail in the Anchor app, and let us know for future reference. But in this one, I'll let you do the honors.
Well, I mean, it's just like a ad for Red Apple cigarettes, which is always like a through line in all of Tarantino's movies is hey, Red Apple cigarettes. And it kind of reminded me of like what's it, Orson Welles, like he did this like commercial for wine and he always kept fucking it up. I mean, like Leonardo DiCaprio wasn't fucking up, but just like at the way end where oh, you know what? Even better. It was like more like a crusty ad like in any of Simpsons episodes. It's like, ooh, try the new crusty burger, and then like he takes a bite out of it and then like the director says cut and then he spits it out and goes, bleh. I mean, that's pretty much the parallel with this scene was.
Yeah, it just had everybody roaring.
Hmm.
How was the theater when they got to the post credits? I don't remember. That scene was just so incredible. You see Leonardo DiCaprio, and if you're a fan of Quentin Tarantino, you know his brand of cigarettes in every movie. So I was just hypnotized by that, and I didn't notice if like there were still enough people there to enjoy that or not. But I really heard a loud laugh.
I think like half the audience filtered out, but like it came up so abruptly. There was like 10 people just like standing right before like little walkway before you get out the door, of just like people standing and watching.
Yeah,
So
and
it was that
people
captivating.
stop what they were doing. I was captivated as well because it's like, okay, you got a gifted filmmaker and storyteller, Quentin Tarantino, and then you got a talented actor, Leonardo DiCaprio, and they're doing a post-credit scene, so you know this is going to be good.
Yeah,
And then
definitely worth the wait.
definitely that and the third act are the reasons why you should rent this movie. And we're trying to make plans about trying to see if we can watch it in 70 millimeter. We make no promises or guarantees, but we're working on that. Even though we told everyone, "Hey, man, wait till TV or something," but it's just something that Quentin Tarantino is a big fan of certain format of movies, 70 millimeters,
Mm.
and it's something that we're interested to see what that format is. We've done it before. We've never seen an IMAX movie, but we saw Mission Impossible. Which one was it? The
Fallout,
latest one. I forgot what the
Fallout,
title is. Oh, Fallout.
Fallout.
Yeah, we saw Fallout in IMAX just because we heard references or recommendations saying, "Hey, you got to see Mission Impossible Fallout in IMAX. That's the way you got to see it." And we saw that movie, and we've never seen a movie in 70 millimeter print. We missed our chance to see Hateful Eight just because a lot of theaters had to be retrofitted to show 70 millimeter, and we'll get a chance to see it as well in 70 millimeter. And I mean, sure, it's going to be a chore to sit through everything, but hey, that third act and that post credit scene, it's enough to call us in.
Yeah, reasonable enough. I'll just take a couple of naps during the second act.
Oh,
I'll like go to sleep after the first 30 minutes and then wake me up in a couple of hours.
yeah, because you've done it before. I forgot which movies we tried to see before, and you fell asleep in them, and we tried to watch them in IMAX, and you fell asleep. One of them was Gravity, correct?
Yeah, I think the other one was Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah. And in your defense, there were really late showings, and we had to drive for hours to get to an IMAX theater.
Yeah.
And then this section's called Easter eggs. Just we pretty much put everything in there. Like if it's an omelet, the first thing it's just that song in the trailer. It's not in the later trailers, but in the teaser trailer, the first trailer for the movie, and it just stuck in my head right now, and it's probably stuck in some people's head. It's called "Bring a Little Lovin'." And then there's references to other Quentin Tarantino movies. Leonardo DiCaprio plays a Nazi character, so that's a reference to Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds.
Mhm.
Leonardo DiCaprio is a famous cowboy, so that's a reference to Django Unchained and Hateful Eight. Then you got his other movie, which was Death Proof, a Grindhouse movie. So you got Kurt Russell playing the stuntman again, and you got Zoe Bell, who was a stunt actress in that movie.
Well,
And
she's
then
like in all of his movies.
she's in all of her movies, but in the movie Death Proof, she played a stunt woman.
Hmm.
And then you have the multiple storylines, which is similar to Pulp Fiction. Anything else that you wanted to add into this section?
Nothing comes to mind. I don't know. It felt pretty cut and dry. I don't know if there's any like, hey, look at, hey, subtle nod.
What about any songs? I probably should have done this during the music section. Was there a song that you liked in the movie that you're like, hey, people, if you want to know what the name of this song is, or hey, check out this song?
Well, like it does one of those things where hey, there's a soundtrack for the movie, but like not all the songs that were in the movie are on the soundtrack. I think it was like "Burned" by Deep Purple's one of them. There's like some other songs probably, but like some like hey, this is like because there's like segments in the movie where like it's just someone driving like up and down, downtown LA or whatever, Hollywood, Northern Hollywood or whatever, and just like oh, he's like playing three, four, five songs in a row, like little vignettes or whatever, and it's like hey, that's a pretty good song. Hey, that's a pretty good. Hey, that's a pretty good song. But like
Yeah,
I don't know. I have
yeah.
to look
So
it up on Wikipedia or something. Just like what were all the songs?
yeah, so one more time, that song that was in the teaser trailer, the first trailer, and that's also in the movie, "Bring a Little Lovin'" by the band Los Bravos. And then there's that other song that goes dun 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 dun. I don't know if it has a cool guitar intro or a
Is that
bass
Straight
intro.
Shooter, Mamas and the Papas?
Yeah, I think that's what that is. So that's another
Yeah.
good song that you guys should check out. I
It's one
got
of the rare instances where the songs in the trailer actually make it into the movie.
yeah, and they just fit in the movie and they fit in the trailer. It's enough of a hook to get you in it. I think
Hmm.
the marketing people that do the Tarantino movies, just have so much fun. They have so many things to work with. It's like probably like a Lego set, building a Lego or something.
Yeah, I wonder how much of a hand Tarantino has in the actual marketing of the movie.
That's a really good question because I know you sent me an interview of Guillermo del Toro
Hmm.
from Nerdist, or I don't know if it's now called ID10 T.
It was probably back when it was Nerdist.
And Guillermo del Toro said the way the industry works is you film your movie and then somebody takes it away from you, your movie, and gives it to a marketing guy, and the marketing people do their thing. But Quentin Tarantino's a big enough force now. He has his own crowd. He people are drawn to him that he probably has enough of a voice. That would be interesting if somebody could research that for us and let us know in the comment sections of our YouTube video, or send us a voicemail in the Anchor app. Let us know. Another thing I have here I don't know if it's an Easter egg or a trivia, that the original script was about detectives investigating the murder of Sharon Tate, and Brad Pitt was supposed to be one of the characters that was an investigator, but Brad Pitt declined, so Quentin Tarantino had to rewrite the story, and it's what we got today about two actors, or an actor struggling to stay relevant in Hollywood. And there's this one scene in the movie where Brad Pitt is investigating something, and it's kind of like, I think this was in the original script.
Yeah, it plays off very much. I don't know. It's kind of suspenseful. Yeah, you could imagine him playing like a private detective or whatever. I mean, he doesn't really find any clues. He just walks inside a building.
Yeah, well, since we're in the spoiler section, and if you guys seen the movie and you want to know what we're talking about, or haven't seen the movie and are just curious, the scene is called, I don't know what the scene is called, but the location is called Spawn Ranch, where they filmed
Yeah.
westerns. And Brad Pitt shows up, and then you have all these mysterious women just appearing out of corners, appearing out of the darkest places. And Brad Pitt is asking for the owner of the ranch, and they just give him this really weird answer, like, "Oh, he's not here, or he's sleeping." But the way they say he's sleeping is kind of like, "Oh, he's dead," but
Hmm.
like taking a long nap or something. And he's investigating, and he's doing more research, and you're like, "Oh my god." Brad Pitt is outnumbered by all these angry women, and something's going to happen to Brad Pitt, and you can just feel what the hair on your arms and the back of your neck standing.
Yeah, it definitely had a lot of suspense. It almost started leaning in towards like horror territory. It felt like you're watching Hills Have Eyes or something. Yeah, and like, oh, something's gonna go down, but then it just winds up leading to absolutely nothing,
It just set up
mostly.
like a really funny scene because we're watching Django, and it was the same actor again, who pretty much, I don't know, I guess he's really sick, and Quentin Tarantino feels bad for him and tries to put him in his movies because he doesn't do much. And in Django Unchained, he was sitting down and he delivered a few lines. In this movie, what's that term when like an actor delivers a role sleeping? He's pretty much lying on his bed delivering his lines.
I didn't know there was a term for it.
Yeah, because I remember I was listening to a review for I think it was a movie called New Year's, where it was like a bunch of different characters celebrating New Year's, and they talked about, oh, Robert De Niro slept through his role, or delivered his lines sleeping, literally because he was on a bed the whole time.
Mm.
And I guess it doesn't matter anymore because that's a really old movie nobody cared for. But that was a really funny joke when I heard a reviewer say that. And then
Well,
just the
I heard like just originally it was supposed to be played by Burt Reynolds, but he died before they were gonna, shoot his scene. So I mean, he was probably pretty up there in age. So I don't know, maybe him lying in bed all day was the original plan for Burt Reynolds.
and ding ding ding, you got an extra bonus Easter egg in that. Yeah, I think that was supposed to be Burt Reynolds, and he just had this. He was known as like this tough guy, who didn't take shit from anyone. So I felt like the scene was going to be played up for more comedy because Burt Reynolds is supposed to be like a man's man with a nice mustache, the hairy chest. Would have
Mm.
delivered some funny lines like, "Hey, what the hell's wrong with you, Brad Pitt? I'm trying to sleep here, and you're bothering me and making a lot of noise." And then also, if you've seen the movie, but you're not a big fan of Quentin Tarantino, and you're scratching your head and saying, "Why are they making a big deal about these cigarettes? They're not Marlboro or anything. They're called Red Apple cigarettes, and they appear in every Tarantino film." Do you remember if they were in Inglourious Bastards?
I mean, they were smoking in that movie, but I don't know if they made like specific mention of Red Apple.
I know in this movie they did make a reference that tied to a previous Tarantino movie. I was wondering if it's Django or Hateful Eight, where they said, "Oh, before Red Apple used to sell you a pouch and you had to roll your own cigarettes. Now they're factory made." So I think there was a previous Tarantino Western movie where they don't mention Red Apple, but they got a little pouch and they're rolling up a cigarette.
Mm.
That's pretty much it. I mean, I had a lot of fun discussing the movie. I'm out of notes. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say.
Uh, I had I don't know, maybe this should have been saved for before the spoiler section, but I had a thought like, where would you rank this amongst your Tarantino like favorite Tarantino movies?
Ooh. Um, let's see. Definitely at the top would be what Pulp Fiction would be the first one.
Yeah, it's kind of no contest for it, right?
Yeah, and then I don't know how to rank Django and Inglorious Bastards because those are really high too.
I'd put probably Inglourious Bastards next for me personally.
Yeah, for me, you could switch them, Inglorious and Django. They could go either or. You can switch them. Um,
Maybe then Kill Bills.
ooh, the Kill Bills are also really good. I guess those Kill Bills would go under Django, and Inglorious Bastards would be the Kill Bills because they got um, action and they got drama and they're just fun to
Hmm.
watch too. Then you got Jackie Brown, you got Reservoir Dogs after that. How many is that? That's three, four, five, seven. Then this
Um,
one, and we're missing one more. Oh,
Hateful Eight.
Death Proof.
Oh, I don't count. No, I don't think anyone counts that one.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I was looking at his filmography. Like you could put Four Rooms, or you could put like From Dusk Till Dawn, or Death Proof, or Sin City. I don't think those like count on his like list of movies. I think it goes in order: Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill 1 and 2, Inglorious Bastards, Django, Hateful Eight, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't think those other projects count as like a film by Tarantino.
Yeah, because I'm just going based on they advertise this as his ninth film,
Yeah,
so I'm just thinking of his nine movies where
I
he's
just
he's
listed.
prominently advertised. Does that mean that this movie would be ranked last for me? Because I
I
would
get.
rank this below Reservoir Dogs, and
Would
that's
you rank
pretty
it
low on my
before
list.
below Hateful Eight or Jackie Brown? Because I consider those as lesser movies.
Oh man, that's very hard. Yeah, I would rank Hateful Eight low, Jackie Brown low, and then Reservoir Dogs is above those two. But then this one, I feel bad because you got Leonardo DiCaprio with Brad Pitt, really good chemistry. You got Brad Pitt, that's a very cool character in this. That's very tough, but I know it would be ranked really low. Um,
For me, it like I base my criteria on what would I most want to watch more before the other ones. And for me, I think I'd rather watch this one above like Reservoir Dogs, Hateful Eight, or Jackie Brown. I put Hateful, or I mean, I put Once Upon a Time in Hollywood above those three. for me personally.
You would put it above, and then I would put it below.
But I
I'm
mean, it's
thinking,
been a while since I've seen any of those, so maybe if I revisit them, I might be have a like a rekindled interest in them. I don't know.
well, that's hard because I know a lot of people didn't like Jackie Brown.
Hmm.
They didn't find it one of his strongest films. Reservoir Dogs. For me, it's a little higher than Jackie Brown and Hateful Eight, just because that's the one that started his style, and it had some iconic scenes. It had that blend of using music in the movie effectively, and the music kind of told the story instead of just having, oh, we got to put this song in the movie because it's cool. No, it made sense having the music there, and then you have that iconic scene that just made a lot of people squirm, which was the cop scene tied down to a chair. So I
Stuck in the
have,
middle with you.
yeah, so I have Reservoir Dogs higher just because so much cultural significance and just because it's what started it all. But this one, it did take a long time, and there were there were times where I felt like, oh my god, this is really long compared to Jackie Brown and Hateful Eight, where it didn't feel that long, and it felt like you were following a straight line. Oh, the story's moving in Hateful Eight, the story's moving Jackie Brown. But in this one, you don't know where the story's going, and then you finally get to the end. You're like, oh my god, oh, it's so much fun, but it was a really long ride to get there. It's like a roller coaster. I would describe this movie as a roller coaster where you're going up, 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 up the hill, and it takes forever to get to the very top, and then you drop down, and then that's it. It's over.
That's a fair assessment to make.
Yeah, I would just probably, I don't know. I feel bad ranking it as number nine on Quentin Tarantino's films.
Well, I mean, if that's your list, that's your list. Maybe after repeat viewings, maybe it might bump up. But I mean, yeah, there's so much downtime in this movie, and like one scene doesn't totally redeem it.
Yeah, because what helped me is when you said ranking them as what would you see again. I would definitely see Inglorious Bastards multiple times. I would see. I know I really like Pulp Fiction, but because I've
Mm-hmm.
seen it so many times, I wouldn't see it again right away. But
Same.
I've seen it so many times. Um, then you got Django, which we saw, and I've been waiting a long time to see that one. Uh, Kill Bill, haven't seen those in a while, but I do remember enjoying them and not thinking that they're going too long. I mean, Volume 2 did seem like it went on for a while. You had this one scene where it didn't make sense. It was Uma Thurman goes to Mexico, and you had the guy from the Dos Equis commercial saying, "Oh, I was Bill's stepdad, and like I noticed this and this about him," and it goes on and on. I took him to the movies, and that didn't make sense. That that was like one of those moments where you felt like, "Oh, this is going on forever," and you're checking your watch.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching Jackie Brown, and I did enjoy that movie. Hateful Eight, it did feel like a long film, but it felt like it was going somewhere. And in this one, it didn't feel like it was going somewhere. I mean, there were points in this film or scenes in this movie where I was ready to go to sleep. And the only reason I would see this movie again is just to watch it in 70 millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think when it does appear, what, 6 years or 6 months from now, sorry, 6 months from now to a year on Netflix, I don't think I would hurry up to watch this again. Be like, oh, I remember this. I think it would just
Um,
be like some weird circumstance why I would want to see this again.
if there's like somehow like an edited down version or somehow like a director's cut version, even though technically this is director's cut, but if it's like a re-edited version to, either be a little bit quicker in pace or edited down or whatever,
Yeah,
better
then
scenes to make it flow better.
I would watch it
Sharon
again.
Tate a personality.
I would watch it again, but I'm still waiting for the audience version of the Watchmen, Zack Snyder's Watchmen, the
Mm-hmm.
audience version where you got all your favorite scenes, the Doctor Manhattan short film, the Rorschach investigation, the Rorschach in jail, and we never got that.
Mm.
And you said you would rank this above Hateful Eight and Jackie Brown.
Well, luckily Jackie Brown is coming to Netflix, what, in August? I think beginning of August, so I can have a chance to rewatch it. But because I don't even think I've actually seen Jackie Brown in its entirety. I think I've seen bits and pieces. I don't know how long ago, so it's at the bottom of my list, but only because I have no jumping off point for it. But like maybe because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the freshest movie, I bumped it up a bit higher. Like Hateful Eight, I don't have any interest in watching. I guess because I know what the twist is at the end of that, so like, I don't need to watch it. Reservoir Dogs, I have it low, but I think I'm just like I bet the dialogue's great, but I just think to myself, oh, the whole movie takes place in a warehouse. Well, boring, not that interesting. But I bet if I rewatch it, I'd be thoroughly entertained by it. So
Yeah.
I have it above those three, but just kind of based off of like a snooty attitude towards like those other ones seem boring.
And when you do watch Reservoir Dogs again, you're gonna have a lot of fun because the opening scene is some of the greatest dialogue in movie history, which
Hmm.
is they're talking about Madonna. And then you got the middle of the movie, which is the cop trying to investigate the bank robbers. And then it's just funny how these criminals are very smart on top of their game, but they're completely oblivious to the obvious cop. You even have that one scene, and I'm just exaggerating here for comedic effect, where like the cop's tape recorder on his chest is malfunctioning and like nobody notices.
Hmm.
Like he's probably even taking pictures of like the bank robbery on the diagram.
Yeah.
And like the leader of the gang is like, "Oh, do you want me to stand closer so I can appear in the picture?" And then you just got that ending, which it's funny how movies used to end in the endings. They would just end abruptly because it ends with a shootout, and then that's it. And then in today times, people are like, "Yeah, but we want the aftermath of after the shooting."
Yeah, how many? Well, I guess I don't know. Maybe audiences aren't willing to go by like to go along with it. But like if you end a movie abruptly, then like you assume that like the director copped out or they didn't know how to end it, so they just cut to black. I don't know. It was an artistic choice back in the '90s, but maybe nowadays it's just seen as lazy.
Yeah, and I think we're due for that. I think somebody should make another movie and have like a really good. Oh, hey, what if a John Wick movie ended like that? You had this really cool shootout scene, and then it just ends.
Well, I mean, hopefully, like for a decent enough movie where you can make the assumption like, well, yeah, that was a satisfying conclusion for this character. I wouldn't mind it end cutting to black. But if it's like a standalone movie that's kind of up its own ass and it cuts to black, then you're gonna piss off your audience, me included.
So, for example, John Wick 3, if it just would have ended after like the shooting in the or the fight scene in the building, where like the guy from Iron Chef, I'm just like you, and John Wick kicks his ass, and then it just ends. It's like, well, I defeated all the bad guys.
If John Wick 3 didn't feel like it was purposefully setting up for a John Wick 4, then I'd be satisfied, I guess, with that ending. Like, oh, he finally met his match. He kind of came out on top, but it took everything out of him or whatever. That's a satisfying enough conclusion.
Yeah. Um. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to our exciting podcast here. Not only did we talk about and review Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but we also talked a lot about Quentin Tarantino and his other body of works because, hey, we're big fans of the movies and we can't shut up when it comes to our favorite topic, movies. So if you're watching us on YouTube, click on any one of our videos in our channel and enjoy another podcast where we go in depth about the movies. And if you're listening to us on the go, thank you for listening to us on Spotify or Anchor app. Listen to another one of our podcasts where we do full on discussions about movies. Follow us on social media. Hopefully, one day we'll be better at replying to people on social media and posting more stuff. But I'm not a social media guy. What about you?
No, but I guess that's part of the business, is you have to be.
Yeah, it's funny how many news shows I see where people are like, "Oh, I'm reporter Dallas Rains," and then here's my social media handle on the bottom.
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone giving a shit.
But somehow they do because they keep
It
mentioning
rained
it.
the other day, Dallas. What's your problem? Well, I just report it. Don't kill the messenger.
Hey guys, when you're right 70% of the time, you're wrong 30% of the time.
Hmm.
Now, I want to end this with a quote. I think we should mention our favorite quotes from the movie to end our podcast. I'll let you go first.
I I love how you set up a segment that nobody knew was coming, and you throw it right to them as if they expected it. But okay, uh, from the movie,
Well, there's only two, and they were in the trailer.
oh, there were. Well, maybe for you, who's to know? From hey, here's mine. Hey, I remember you.
Because I'm hoping you'll say mine, and then I can just end it.
I can't read your mind. Only you can assume that I'm reading your mind, and you're wrong. Let's say 117% of the time.
Well, when I was watching the movie, I kept hearing this quote, and I'm like, "Oh, you can make a drinking game out of this. Every time they say this line, take a shot."
Hmm. Still don't know what you're talking about, so you better say it.
All right. So, do you want to say a quote as well after I'm done?
I did. I remember you. I
That was
know
in the
you.
movie.
I don't. Yeah, when he like the Manson family breaks into his house and it's like, hey, I remember you because he went to Spawn Ranch to meet the Manson family.
Oh man, you just embarrassed me in front of our audience. I claim to be the biggest Quentin Tarantino fan, and you said something that I didn't
Well, I mean, how
recognize.
many memorable lines were in this movie? I don't remember nothing.
Well, there was
Maybe
one.
something the Italian wife said. If I could speak Italian, maybe they're there. I would quote that.
There's one that I really want to say, but I guess the government monitors you, and they're going to take it the wrong way. So I'll just
Mm.
say this other one, but I'm going to have to censor it because YouTube hates when people swear. Really hurts your what is it, AdSense or your marketing.
I think that's only if you swear in the first 30 seconds. After that, you're clear for takeoff.
Oh, cool. So once we get a bigger audience, guys, we're not going to let YouTube censor us. But here goes. Quote from the movie, and you should apply this to your life. Anytime you feel down, anytime you feel sad, anytime you feel like things aren't going your way, just say this to yourself, and it'll pick you right back up. Hey, you're Rick bleepin' Dalton. Don't you forget it.